Hi there, welcome back to the Complicated Kids podcast. I'm your host, Gabriele Nicolet. I am a toddler whisperer, a speech therapist, and a parent coach. And today I have David Schatzkamer. David, welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
Thanks
to
for having me.
thank you for being here. Before we get started, tell the good people a little bit about yourself and the work that you do, please.
Sure. I am a licensed mental health counselor and a registered play therapist supervisor. I work with kids, mainly ages 3 to 8. And that's a really niche time frame that I work with kids and their parents. Most of my work is play therapy, and more specific, it's more child-centered play and filial therapy. Child-centered play is more allowing the kid to, I follow the kid's lead and provide that environment for the kid to really, because I believe the kid is able to figure things on his own, and I'm just that conduit where they could do that.
And
Um,
so tell us why is it important to follow a child's lead and not come in with a plan or a program for them, particularly at this age. I imagine there's a developmental thing happening here, but there's
yeah,
also a pedagogical thing happening here too.
most parents that come in and most people don't really understand what a kid does. Like, why is he doing certain things? What's going on? It's not like an adult we could actually communicate and tell you what we're feeling or what's going on. Kids have just their own way of communicating, and they're more likely to communicate through play. And kids play very well normal developing in the ages of 3 to about 8. They could fantasize, they can imagine, they could project things in their life that are then they could put it onto their toys and their play, so you can really get a sense of what's really going on in their brain, like what's going on for them and how, like, really seeing in their core of what's happening for them, you
And
know?
I imagine that some of your work, it strikes me that you're probably very good at this, is interpreting what's coming out in play, connecting that to reality, for lack of a better word, and then explaining that to adults. Do you want to talk about your process a little bit there?
So I don't, to be surprised, I don't really interpret the play. I don't really need to, in terms of for me per se, because the kid is already showing me what's happening. Like, I just had recently a 3-year-old, and he's playing with the dolls and the baby and the everything. And the mother happened to be there in the room too, and he's saying like the baby has a nosebleed or whatever. And he was a little nervous about it, type of thing. So the mother was like laughing a little bit, and on the side, like, I'm thinking this is something that actually happened, that he's actually projecting onto this thing, that he's like, okay, I'm worried about, like, yeah, you're really worried about the nosebleed, you want to make sure the baby's okay, that, like, kind of reassuring him in his own, by reflecting to him, like, yeah, you're taking care of it, you want to make sure the baby's okay, and you can go on to the next thing now. You don't have to, like, have that anxiety ruminate for a while.
And so, did you, in that scenario, because the parent was there, was it you, the adult, were you the adult that sort of provided that reinforcement and that backstop, or did you have mom do that? I'm
No, I
always
did. I,
interested.
I, I was doing that. And in this context, the mother was on the side. But if I do filial work, which is really, filial is mainly teaching parents to play therapeutically with their own kids.
Mhm.
So in essence, I'm teaching parents to do what I do, but you just do it with your kids. And I'm going to train you how to be me, but you do it.
I
And it's
love
very
that.
empowering, very transformative, because, like, you're really doing hands-on work. You're doing a play session with your own kid. Like, you're learning how to do it, like a child-centered play with your own kid. And really, what's really powerful about it is parents then do it at home, and it just generalizes to older kids. They could just
This
do.
is something that I started experimenting with more during the pandemic when we were virtual, because I used to go into homes and schools and see children one on one. But with the parent and the child at home, I was on the screen. It was much more of an opportunity to teach the parents. And to your point, like, there are many, many more opportunities throughout the week, throughout the day, because parents are at home with their kids. It's one thing
Yeah,
to like schlep, your kid to the therapist once a
right.
week. I'm guessing you do
Yeah,
once or twice a week with most people. that's an hour out of hundreds of hours potentially where this could be happening.
Right. I tell parents, you know your kid better than anyone else. You're with them 24 hours a day. Why not me just show you what I do?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, why don't we just give it to you, like, hands on? And like parents ask me, so what you do with my kid in therapy, do you do with your own kids? So
Do
it's
you?
a million dollar question. So yeah, so there's one difference. I don't have to do, this is who I am.
Yeah.
It's like more natural. I don't have to like take notes. So my goal for parents, I'm doing that filial type of work, more like I'm gonna make you the new you,
Mm.
how you relate to your kids.
And when people come to you, like what type of situations, issues are happening when people need filiotherapy, for example?
I think filler should be done for everybody and anyone. It doesn't make a difference in terms of whether you have issues, no issues. Everybody, parenting in itself is like there's no manual. Like, okay, like what do I do now? But it's a very strong foundation with every parent to really like how to relate, how to talk to, how to understand the why they do certain things and what's like. Don't take things personally, like you're not just because your kid calls you stupid, you're not stupid. I don't love you, whatever. She's really telling you he's upset at you, and that's don't
Okay,
just.
pause for a second because this is something that little nugget of what you just said is something that parents really need to hear. When your child says you're stupid, you're tell us what parents should put into their minds.
They're looking at like they're taking it from a perspective like they're not respectful, they're disrespectful, they're calling me names. It's not nice. Yes, but that's a different time. Right now, they're telling you they're upset because maybe you took the cookie away, or maybe you didn't have them ever turn with a device, whatever. Okay, so then you would instead of reacting to what they're saying, respond to them what they're really going through. And I would respond Jamie, you're really upset. I took away the time and you don't like it, and you really wanted more 5 minutes, and I know, and you just don't know what to say to me. You're calling me names, and you're just really upset that I didn't let you play with another 5 minutes.
And should the parent then give the give the device back or
I'm not
capitulate
saying, I'm
because
not
the
saying, I'm
child
not,
is upset?
no, I'm saying you could do that, you could have another 5 minutes after supper or whatever, or you could play with something else right now, or yeah, you have to set a limit, but a healthy limit, a healthy boundary coupled with empathy, the kid knows, okay, Ma, you really understand me. Dad, you get me. Fine, I get it. But then what are you gonna dress like he was disrespectful? Okay, but later time when he's at night or when he's sitting down on the couch, listen, what you did before was not upset. I know you were upset, you call me names. It's not the right thing to do. Sometimes I tell parents, maybe make a code word. So
Hmm.
if you're upset, maybe make like, for my daughter, I say applesauce. And she's a teenager right now. We joke like, if I'm bugging you too much, applesauce moment. Like, just leave me alone, back off. Like you can make a code word that's not so the kid could say like instead of stupid, you could say like Cookie Monster or something. So okay, you're really upset now. I get it. Like we're on the same language.
This is very interesting what you just said, though, and you totally said it in passing. You said your daughter is how old? 16?
17.
17. What you said was your daughter is allowed to call applesauce when you're annoying her.
Hmm.
This is a novel idea, I think, for probably not for this audience, but for many parents. This is a novel idea that we should afford our children the same courtesies that we also that we should do for our children the way that we expect them to do for us. So if we can call applesauce, but they can also call applesauce.
Yeah, it goes both ways.
It goes both ways, but I think, and
Mm.
we've talked a lot about this on this particular podcast, it's a very childist society in which we think that children are some subclass of human that need to be molded and formed and they come as an empty vessel. That is, you tell me what you think, but I think that is the furthest thing from the truth, actually.
Yeah. Mhm. They're precious people, precious kids.
But so what do you think about this? Do they come as empty vessels or do they come as themselves and then we get to kind of,
We all come up ourselves. We just lose that when we get older.
oh, that's interesting, really?
You just
Tell me
keep
more
that.
about that. Yeah.
If you just keep that presence, it's just so much more invigorating.
Yeah.
We get caught up on life, marriage, kids, work, stress. We don't necessarily show up. Kids show up as themselves. Just don't
And
know how to
and do you
appreciate.
think that's why sometimes kids' behavior is triggering for adults?
Possibly, yeah, because they take it personally, or I want to do that, or they, God knows what could go in parents' mind. People ask me, why don't you work with older kids,
Yeah.
or like 9 or 8 or teenagers or adults? It's just too complicated for me. Like I get kids, like just give me someone who just shows up as is, was is. This I can relate to, you
It's
know?
interesting when, and I say this to parents all the time, the earlier we start, the better. Like I had a consult call this morning, 2-year-old, very big emotions. Parents are really unsure what to do. They're trying different disciplinary tactics. Hate that word discipline, but whatever, it's fine. They're trying different things when the meltdown is happening and nothing's really consistent, nothing's really working. Everybody's stressed. So that stress, in my view, is coming from a core need, probably a nervous system regulation issue. And that communication from that child is what I would call pure, right? It's coming from the need.
Mhm.
The older kids get, and I think this is what you're saying, the older kids get, the more behavior gets layered on top and layered on top. And then we got to do a bunch of excavation to figure out, okay, what was the core need in the first place?
So I don't work with kids older than 8.
Yeah.
One, I don't get. I just, it's different. Play is different because kids play differently when they get older. They're
Mm-hmm.
more cognitively available,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just more complicated. Like it's not fun anymore in a way. Like kid shows up as is. Like he'll say what he wants, when he wants, how he wants. It's just I can relate to that, because that's how I show up. You
Yeah.
know.
And how do you explain for parents who are triggered by their kids' extreme presence, for example, where they're like, it's now, it's this, it's now. How do you modulate that for parents?
It's very hard. One thing, don't take things personally at all. Like he's just communicating differently. You just don't know the language. Okay, so if it's a language barrier, then I'm a little bit more okay. Let me be curious about finding out what that language is. I could be wrong. I can mess up. I can make mistakes. Okay with it, but you're learning and you're curious about it. You know. Also,
That, yeah.
if you're empathic, you're like giving a little separation. You're not. It's not about your feelings. You're just revealing the kid's feelings. So it's nothing to do with you per se.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you need a break, you move to a different room, you take a walk. We all been there, done that, like you're too much, you're going through too much, whatever it may be in your life, then just say, I want to address you, I want to work, but I need to take a break. I'll come back in 5 minutes and I'll
Yeah.
help, we'll figure it out, whatever. Like if you need a break physically, take a break physically.
Hmm. And if you have a
Otherwise, go
parenting
to
partner, tag out.
yeah, go to a room, go to the bathroom, take a walk, have a coffee. I don't know, like I need 10 minutes, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
better than it's better reacting like that than doing something you might want to regret, might regret later.
And I think sometimes we think that we have to hold it together, we have to lock it
Mm.
down, and not take that break. And what I hear you saying is, no, no, no. Taking a break is actually healthier, better, um, healthier and better than kind of staying in the interaction and being overwhelmed by it.
Because that alone, think about it, I have to figure it out. That alone is like nerve-wracking.
Mhm.
Just thinking that I have to think about getting it together.
Yeah, it requires a lot of brain space. Um, how do you speak to parents who are alone raising in other words, society right now is pretty isolated. Most people don't
Mm.
have a very large community around them. And I don't know if the people that you work with do or not, but like, how are you addressing this like isolation issue in families, if you are?
Talking about families like separating or divorce or society or
It's mostly societal. We're all living in our little houses and, we're not too much. I think I'm curious more and more about, you know, mom, dad, or mom and mom, whatever, parents at home with children, and there's not the grandparents and the aunties and the uncles and the cousins and the community support that would otherwise be there. For example, if you get stressed out, right? If at 2:30 on a Wednesday you're maxed out, there's there less and less often is there a neighbor next door where you can say, "Hey, I need you to watch the kids for a minute."
Right. Sometimes you have to make that community inside your family too.
Yeah.
Like what works? Okay, I need a break. This is what's gonna happen. Like make it within the context of who you are. And sometimes that community might be just like writing a journal and keeping logs and just like getting it out there, If you're not an outgoing type person,
How much of what's going on with kids when they come to your office has to do with the adults and how much has to do with the children?
I think it's a blend of both.
Okay.
It's a blend of both, really. Especially younger kids, because they're very much close to parents. They're very like 3, 4, 5-year-old. You're right, there's stuff there, but there's stuff that the parents, how they show up could just reveal all the good stuff that the kid has. So I try to bring that out in terms of the parenting and the style and the so the kid doesn't feel like I have to like it's not like robotic or type of feel more is like open and like I get you and we'll make it work and we'll figure it out type of thing.
It's interesting what you're saying. It's a lot of the same. I mean, you and I do similar kinds of work, but it is right noticing and appreciating what it is that you like about your child, what it is that's going well, as a way of training our brains to see the whole picture and not just pay attention to the negative.
Like like
And
like someone like Gary Landreth, who's like the play therapy guru, you want to call it, or the child-centered founder. Don't look at the whole of the donut. Just look at the donut.
I love that.
Don't look what's missing. Look what you got.
Yeah. And listen, sometimes, and I say this a lot on the podcast too, sometimes we have to look at the hole and be like, okay, how big is this hole? How is it getting smaller? Is it getting
The
bigger?
whole doesn't define the donut.
That's right. But the hole does not define the donut. And we don't want to stay in a position where we're only looking at, I just love that donut analogy. That's fantastic. I hadn't heard that before. Um, yeah, look at the donut. Your child is a delicious donut.
Yeah, and he has a hole. Okay,
And
we
it has a
all have a
hole.
hole, but we all have a holes. Don't let it like define us. It's not just because my kid is gets upset. He's not an angry kid, you know?
Oh, say more about that.
Like he's so much more than just okay, he's going through some difficulties, has a challenge, he has a phobia of something. Yeah, okay, it's hard, but that doesn't make him who he is. And if you make him who he is, then he's gonna grow up thinking that okay, that's who he is, and that's how he has to live his life. And he's gonna have so much stress, he doesn't even know what the stress is for.
In coaching school, and I think this is a coach thing, how, and possibly in therapy as well, how we talk to each other, what words we use, the semantics, the grammar matters. And so what I hear you saying is, right, it's not an angry child. It's a child who feels angry sometimes.
Yeah,
Those are different.
yeah,
And what I hear you saying is kind of helping parents see this is a child who experiences anger. This is not a child who is angry.
yeah.
And that's the energy around that is completely different. Yeah.
It's like also when I tell parents, like parents also have this thing they have to tell their kids, okay, you're very smart. I'm very big against it because then the kid has to grow up like I have to be smart. Instead of telling him he's smart, telling him what he's good at. Get specific. Okay, you're really good at playing music, really making this. You're really good at be specific. Don't praise the product, but praise the effort.
Yes. And if you haven't read Carol Dweck's book on mind, what is it called? Is it called Mindset? I think it's called Mindset. Growth Mindset. That's exactly what you're talking about. Don't praise kids for who they are, praise them for what they do, and be specific.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. David, if people want to know more about you and work with you and find out things, what do they do?
They can go to my website, www.center, number 4, playtherapy.com. They can also call me 718-715-9402.
Perfect. And we will link to all of that in the show notes. Any parting words before we wrap this up?
Oh, this was fun. As much as it was difficult for me to come on, as you know, this is my a little bit out of my comfort zone, but it was you have a good vibe. I feed off your vibe, so that's a good thing. Same thing with
Well,
kids also, because like I follow your lead, I'm just following along. I'm
yeah.
allowing myself to follow along. I practice what I preach.
And that is an excellent way to end this. Practice what you preach. I love that. Thank you so much for being here and for
Thank you so
stepping
much.
out with us.
Thank you so much.